I found my dead mother's engagement ring on my stepmother's hand while Dad was at work. When I asked her about it, she said, "Your dad said I could wear it to feel closer to the family." I took photos and walked away, knowing I was about to ruin her. I have the opposite of daddy issues. My father is such an amazing man that it tricked me into thinking every man was great. When insulin made me gain weight, he gained 20 pounds with me so I wouldn't feel alone. And when I was a child and he only had enough change in his pocket for one of us to get ice cream, he always let me have it. So when he married my stepmom, I thought she would be equally as amazing. Boy, was I wrong. When she moved in, she gave me a huge hug and even got me a new iPad. And as soon as she discovered I had type 1 diabetes, her eyes lit up with the same predatory gleam I later learned meant trouble. It started small. She began adding regular sodas to my diet drink bottles, just enough to cause unexplained spikes that made me look careless at doctor appointments. At my sweet 16 party, she hid my insulin pen right before cake time. I had to excuse myself, searching desperately while she told guests I was probably having a teenage mood swing. She'd found it in my room later, suggesting to Dad that I was becoming forgetful with my medication. I so badly wanted to tell my dad what was going on, but he had been so happy to find someone after Mom died, I couldn't bear to ruin it. I kept telling myself that it was just our adjustment period and things would get better soon. But when my college interview trip came around, I couldn't even lie to myself anymore. It was a calculated attack. Dad couldn't come, so she volunteered to drive me. I couldn't say no without exposing the truth, so I agreed and hoped for the best. Halfway there, she pulled over for gas and I went to test my blood sugar. My meter was gone, my backup was gone, my juice boxes were gone. She drove to a pharmacy to help, but took wrong turns for an hour. I missed my interview while in the hospital with dangerously low blood sugar. She told Dad I'd forgotten to pack my supplies because I was too stressed. After the ER doctor mentioned this was the third accident in 2 months, I couldn't take it anymore. So when my dad asked if everything was okay, I finally told the truth. "Dad, I'm sorry, but Hannah's been hiding my insulin. She's trying to make me sick on purpose and Hannah would never do that," he interrupted. "She's a registered nurse. I think you're overwhelmed with senior year." Hannah stood behind him, filing her nails with a satisfied smile. But I went to bed that night with one thought. She'd taught me exactly how to make someone look unstable. Time to put the knowledge to good use. I spent weeks studying her routines, pretending like I was warming up to her. That's when I found out she was on anxiety medication. Gotcha. From there, I learned she had job interviews lined up at prestigious hospitals. I practiced my concerned stepdaughter face in the mirror. Phase 1 was simple. I started switching her anxiety medication with sugar pills, but only on specific days. Her first interview at the private clinic, she was sweating and shaking so badly they ended it early. I was there to pick her up, offering comfort while she blamed interview nerves. 2 weeks later, I planted empty wine bottles in her car, timing it with Dad finding them. She swore she didn't drink, accusing me of setting her up. Dad found it concerning how paranoid she was becoming. For her interview at the Children's Hospital, her dream job, I replaced all her professional clothes with identical ones 2 sizes smaller the night before. Her meltdown that morning was more beautiful than a sunset by the beach. But unfortunately, it was a waste, because Dad had already left for work. My final move came at Dad's company gala. Hannah had spent weeks preparing. New dress, professional makeup, practicing her doctor's wife persona. I brought her a special calming tea before we left, made with 4 bags of caffeine tea. Halfway through dinner, her hands were shaking so badly she knocked over her wine. She tried to excuse herself, but her anxiety made her grab the tablecloth. As plates crashed down, she threw a metal fork at my head. "You know what you're doing, you effing beach. You're trying to make me look crazy just like I—" She stopped, realizing what she'd almost said. But Dad had heard enough. "Just like you what, Hannah?" She grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise, screaming that I was a manipulative little diabetic psycho who'd been playing victim since day one. The entire ballroom was staring. Security moved to intervene, and I fell dramatically to the floor, forcing tears out of my eyes. As Dad rushed to help me, I looked directly at Hannah and smiled. That's when I made my ballsiest move yet. I gasped loudly, clutching my bruised arm as security approached our table. The entire ballroom had gone silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on our family drama unfolding like a car crash in slow motion. The security guard reached us first, his hand hovering near his radio. Dad helped me to my feet while Hannah stood frozen, her face cycling through emotions. Rage, fear, then desperate calculation. Her grip had left clear finger marks on my arm, already darkening into bruises. The CEO's wife leaned over to her husband, her voice carrying in the silence. "Isn't this the same woman from the wine store incident last month? The one who was screaming at the cashier?" Hannah's head snapped toward them, her eyes wild. I wasn't hammered. I had a reaction to medication." More murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dad's CFO cleared his throat. "Actually, my wife mentioned seeing you at the liquor store on Tuesday morning. Around 10 a.m., she said." Hannah's hands started shaking harder, the caffeine OD making her look exactly like someone caught in a lie about drinking. She knocked over another glass trying to gesture, water spreading across the white tablecloth. "I was buying cooking wine." Her voice cracked, too loud, too defensive. "For Paul's favorite chicken dish." Dad stepped between us, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Hannah, let go of her arm, now." She looked down, seeming surprised to find she was still gripping me. When she released me, I stumbled dramatically, letting the security guard steady me. He noticed the marks immediately. "Miss, do you need medical attention? Should I call for ice?" I nodded weakly, making sure everyone nearby could see the bruising. A woman from Dad's legal department was already taking photos with her phone. Evidence. Perfect. Hannah tried to explain, but her words tumbled out in a caffeine-fueled rush. "She's been doing things, switching things, making me look." She stopped, realizing how paranoid she sounded. Dad's assistant rushed over with ice wrapped in a cloth napkin. As she pressed it to my arm, she whispered loud enough for others to hear, "Those Those marks look deep. You should document this. We're leaving, Dad announced, his professional composure finally cracking. Hannah, get your things. I touched his arm gently, pitched my voice to Carrie just far enough. Dad, I think she might need medical attention. She seems unwell. Several doctors from the hospital board exchanged glances. One stepped forward. Paul, if your wife is having a medical episode, we should really have her evaluated. Hannah backed away, knocking into a chair. I'm fine. It's just, I might have taken an extra anxiety med by mistake. Or maybe, she pressed her hands to her temples. The pills look different this week. Dad's expression shifted from anger to concern. Different how? I don't know. Everything's been wrong lately. My clothes don't fit, my medication isn't working, I can't. She was hyperventilating now, the caffeine making her heart race visibly. Her pulse fluttered at her throat. The security guard spoke into his radio, calling for the building's medical team. Hannah tried to protest but swayed on her feet. Dad caught her arm, and suddenly she was clinging to him, sobbing. I'm not crazy, Paul. She's doing something to me. I know she is. The crowd parted as we made our way to the exit, Hannah leaning heavily on Dad while I followed with the security guard and building medic. In the parking garage, the fluorescent lights made Hannah look even worse, pale, sweating, shaking. She collapsed against their car, sliding down to sit on the concrete. Dad immediately pulled out his phone. I'm calling 911. No! Hannah grabbed for the phone but missed. I just need to go home. I knelt beside her, playing the concerned stepdaughter perfectly. I took her wrist, feeling her racing pulse. Dad, her heart rate is really fast. Like, really fast. The building medic confirmed it with actual equipment. Sir, her pulse is 140. We need to get her to a hospital. Hannah was crying now, mascara streaming down her face. This isn't right. None of this is right. I stayed by her side, holding her hand supportively while Dad gave the 911 dispatcher our location. When Hannah looked at me, I made sure my expression was nothing but worry and compassion. Only she could see the satisfaction in my eyes. The ambulance arrived within minutes, paramedics taking over with professional efficiency. They asked about medications, and Hannah admitted to her anxiety prescription. I think I took extra by accident, she said, then looked at me with sudden clarity. The pills. Check if they're the right pills. One of the paramedics noted her symptoms. Ma'am, have you taken any stimulants? Caffeine pills? Energy drinks? Just tea. She made me tea. Hannah pointed at me, but her hand was shaking so badly it looked like a meaningless gesture. Chamomile tea, I corrected gently, to help with her nerves. Dad, should I show them the box? Dad nodded absently, focused on Hannah as they loaded her onto a gurney. I made a show of checking my purse. Oh no, I must have left it at home. I'm so sorry. In the hospital waiting room, Dad's phone buzzed constantly, text after text from gala attendees, each adding their own observations about Hannah's recent behavior. I read them over his shoulder. Paul, I hope Hannah's okay. She seemed agitated even before dinner. Thinking of you. Martha mentioned Hannah's been acting strange at the gym lately. Is this related to what happened at the school fundraiser last month? Dad rubbed his face, looking exhausted. What school fundraiser? I bit my lip. She volunteered to help with the bake sale, but I didn't want to worry you. She had an episode about the cash box, accused the PTA president of stealing when it was just misplaced. His phone buzzed again. This time it was his sister. Just heard what happened. Is this connected to the wine bottles David found in her car? Dad looked at me sharply. You knew about that? She said they were for cooking. I believed her. I let my voice crack. I wanted to believe her. While Dad stepped outside to make calls, I pulled out my phone and opened our Ring doorbell app. There was Hannah from earlier that evening, pacing on our front porch, muttering to herself, looking paranoid. I saved the footage to my cloud storage before she could think to delete it. A doctor emerged after what felt like hours. Mr. Patterson, your wife is stable. Her symptoms are consistent with caffeine overdose, possibly combined with her anxiety medication. She admitted she's been taking extra doses lately. Dad's shoulders sagged. Extra doses? She said she's been feeling increasingly anxious and thought doubling up might help. Has she been under stress? I spoke up softly. She's been interviewing for jobs. It's been really hard on her. The doctor nodded. That could explain it. We'll keep her for observation. Run some tests. You can see her in a few minutes. As the doctor walked away, Dad turned to me. His face was lined with exhaustion and something else. Doubt. The bruises on your arm. Did she really? I pulled up my sleeve, showing the dark marks clearly. It's not the first time, Dad, but she's sick. She needs help. His phone buzzed again. Another text, this time with a photo attachment. Someone had captured the moment Hannah threw the fork, her face contorted with rage. The image was already spreading through his professional network. When they finally let us see Hannah, she was lying in a hospital bed, hooked to monitors. The caffeine was wearing off, leaving her drained and confused. She looked at Dad with desperate eyes. The pills were different. I know they were. And my clothes, the wine bottles, everything's been wrong. Dad took her hand, but I could see the doubt creeping in. Hannah, the doctor said you've been doubling your anxiety medication because nothing was working. Because Hannah looked at me, then stopped. I must be having a breakdown. I'm sorry, Paul. I'm so sorry. I stayed quiet, the perfect picture of a concerned stepdaughter. But inside, I was already planning the next phase. She'd taught me well, how to make someone look unstable, how to plant doubt, how to destroy credibility. The war had officially begun, and I was winning. The next morning, I posted a carefully crafted Instagram story showing my bruised arm with prayer hands and a vague caption about surviving difficult times. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. Friends asking if I was okay, classmates wanting details, and most importantly, creating a digital trail of concern that Dad couldn't ignore. Hannah returned from the hospital that afternoon looking haggard. Dad had arranged for her sister to pick her up while he stayed home from work to process everything. I watched from my bedroom window as she stumbled getting out of the car, her professional facade completely shattered. Dad's sister called while Hannah was settling in. I could hear his side of the conversation from the hallway, his voice strained as he tried to explain the gala incident. When he mentioned the wine bottles David had found in Hannah's car, I heard him pause at whatever his sister said in response. He ended the call looking more troubled than before. Hannah emerged from their bedroom an hour later, moving like a ghost through the house. When she saw me in the kitchen, she froze. Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought she might say something. Instead, she turned and walked away, but not before I caught her muttering under her breath about everyone watching her. I screenshot her paranoid text messages to Dad throughout the day, each one more frantic than the last. She accused the neighbors of spying, claimed the mailman was taking photos, insisted someone had been in the house while she was at the hospital. Dad's responses grew shorter, more concerned. The marriage counselor Dad contacted could see them in 3 days. When Hannah found out, she cornered me in the laundry room while Dad was in the garage. Her face was inches from mine, her breath sour from not eating. She grabbed my shoulders, not hard enough to bruise this time, but firm enough to make her point. I immediately ran to my room and locked the door, making sure to slam it loud enough for Dad to hear. Hannah followed, pounding on the door and shouting accusations. I pressed record on my phone, capturing every threat, every paranoid claim. When Dad came running upstairs, I was huddled in my closet, visibly shaking. The Ring doorbell footage I showed him was damning. Hannah pacing, pounding, screaming that I was trying to destroy her life. The audio was partially muffled, but her rage was unmistakable. Dad's face went pale as he watched his wife completely lose control. School became my sanctuary and my weapon. I scheduled an emergency session with the counselor, bringing photos of my bruised arm and expressing fear about going home. The counselor, a mandatory reporter, documented everything. She called Dad that afternoon, her professional concern adding another layer of credibility to my story. Dad started monitoring Hannah's medication after noticing her prescription running low too quickly. She swore she was taking normal doses, but the math didn't add up. When he questioned her about it, she became defensive, accusing him of not trusting her. Their argument echoed through the house that night. My best friend's mother worked at the private clinic where Hannah had interviewed. She mentioned to Dad at the gas station how surprised she was that Hannah had bombed the interview so badly. Dad's expression when he realized I hadn't told him about the interview was a mixture of hurt and growing suspicion. Hannah's paranoia escalated rapidly. She installed new locks on her closet, started hiding her purse, and jumped whenever anyone entered a room. Her best friend called Dad, expressing concern about Hannah's constant talk about me, how every conversation somehow circled back to her stepdaughter trying to ruin her life. The scarf incident happened on a Tuesday. I casually mentioned finding Mom's favorite scarf in Hannah's drawer while looking for my calculator. Dad's face changed immediately. He knew that scarf, knew its significance. When he confronted Hannah, she claimed she didn't know it was special, just like the pattern. But Dad had told her the story behind it just months ago. The lie was obvious. That night, I heard them arguing again. Hannah's voice was shrill, desperate. She kept insisting I was setting her up, that I was more manipulative than anyone realized. Dad's responses grew quieter, more distant. The doubt I'd planted was taking root. Hannah started attending my diabetes support group at the hospital, claiming she wanted to better understand my condition, but her comments during meetings were subtly undermining. She'd mention how teenagers could be dramatic about routine care, how some kids used their conditions for attention. Other parents started giving me strange looks. I told the school nurse I was afraid Hannah might tamper with my insulin at home. The nurse had no choice but to document my concern and notify administration. Another official record, another crack in Hannah's credibility. The CPS visit came on a Friday. Hannah's nursing license made her seem credible at first, and I could see the social worker's skepticism when talking to me. They brought up my therapy sessions after Mom's death, suggesting I might be struggling with a new maternal figure. Hannah stood in the doorway, looking appropriately concerned while I felt my carefully built case starting to crumble. My little cousin's innocent comment at Sunday dinner was devastating. She announced that Aunt Hannah said I sometimes made myself sick for attention. The table erupted. Dad's mother demanded to know why Hannah was discussing me with a 6-year-old. Hannah's stammered explanation about trying to help the family understand only made things worse. The security camera in my room mysteriously had a gap in footage from the night I claimed Hannah had been in there. She suggested I disabled it myself, and without proof, it became my word against hers. Dad didn't know what to believe anymore. A family court mediator suggested I might benefit from living with relatives during this adjustment period. Dad's face when he considered it broke my heart, but I couldn't back down now. Hannah had started this war, and I was going to finish it. I discovered Hannah's old Facebook still logged in on the family computer. Her posts in nursing support groups about dealing with difficult stepchildren dated back months. Screenshots of her complaining about her ex-boyfriend's kids showed a clear pattern. This wasn't her first time trying to push out stepchildren. Dad's company implemented new policies about family members at corporate events after the gala incident. His co-workers avoided him, and whispers followed him through the halls. The promotion he'd worked toward for 2 years quietly went to someone else. He came home that night looking defeated. My therapist noted my hypervigilance around Hannah, suggesting it might be PTSD from Mom's death being triggered. She recommended intensive treatment, possibly inpatient. When Hannah suggested using my college fund to pay for it, claiming it was more important than education right now, I saw Dad actually consider it. The walls were closing in. School pickup became a battlefield. Hannah volunteered to get me, claiming she wanted to help Dad. Refusing would make me look difficult to the teachers watching, so I had to accept. Those car rides were silent torture, both of us knowing what the other was capable of. My diabetes doctor, who golfed with Hannah's colleague, started questioning my blood sugar management. He suggested my inconsistent readings might be stress-related, possibly self-induced. The medical community was beginning to close ranks around one of their own. I found Hannah trying on Mom's jewelry when Dad traveled for work. She claimed Dad said she could wear it to feel closer to the family. The sight of her wearing Mom's engagement ring made me physically ill, but I just took photos and added them to my growing collection of evidence. Hannah offered to help me prepare for my makeup college interview, and Dad was watching when she made the offer. I couldn't refuse without looking spiteful. During our preparation session, she mentioned her nursing connections at the admissions office, how she could put in a good word or not. The threat was clear. Everything changed when I found the receipt. Hannah really had bought cooking wine for Dad's favorite chicken dish. The timestamp matched her story. The ingredients were all there. For the first time, I wondered what else I might have been wrong about. Going through Mom's email felt like a violation, but I needed answers. Her message to her best friend hit me like a physical blow. She worried Dad would remarry too quickly because he hated being alone. Her concern wasn't about a specific person, but about Dad's tendency to rush into relationships to avoid loneliness. Mom had asked her friend to watch over me if someone new came along. The friend admitted she'd tried, but I'd pushed everyone away in my grief. I'd been so focused on protecting Dad that I'd isolated myself from people who could have helped. My grandmother's ultimatum was simple but harsh. Either I tried harder with Hannah or I could move in with her, but she made it clear I wouldn't be happy under her strict rules. Without her as a refuge and Dad considering treatment facilities, I was running out of options. I started documenting everything like Hannah did. Times, dates, witnesses. Every interaction was recorded, every conversation noted. I was learning her tactics, becoming what I needed to be to survive. Through mutual acquaintances at the support group, I discovered Hannah's ex lived nearby. I arranged to accidentally run into his daughter at a coffee shop. She recognized the pattern immediately, told me Hannah had done the same thing to her, but she had no proof and was too traumatized to get involved. Another dead end. Dad's lawyer friend mentioned that Hannah had come for a consultation about protecting assets in blended families. She was planning her exit strategy, making sure she'd get maximum benefit when things fell apart. The calculation of it all was chilling. I missed my SAT prep session while meeting with CPS for a follow-up. My grades were slipping, college dreams crumbling under the stress. When Hannah sweetly offered to help with tutoring, the trap was obvious. Accept and give her more access to sabotage me, or refuse and look ungrateful. My emergency credit card maxed out from Uber rides and takeout orders. Home had become a battlefield, and I couldn't eat there anymore. When Dad saw the charges, his disappointment was evident. I looked irresponsible, wasteful, exactly how Hannah had been painting me. We both showed up at Mom's grave on her death anniversary. The confrontation was inevitable. Hannah accused me of trying to steal her happiness. I accused her of trying to replace my mother. The groundskeeper had to intervene when our shouting match disturbed other mourners. Hannah told him I'd attacked her, though we'd never touched. Dad's promotion denial letter came the next week. The reasons cited included recent instability and family distractions. He didn't say it, but I could see in his eyes that he blamed me. Not Hannah's behavior at the gala, but my acting out. I was losing him, just like Hannah had planned. I rotated between friends' houses while Hannah redecorated my room to help with a fresh start. She removed all of Mom's touches, painted over the walls where we'd measured my height, replaced furniture Mom had picked out. Each change was a small death. Mom's sister begged me to try harder for Dad's sake. She mentioned his stress-related chest pains, how worried the family was about him. The guilt was suffocating. Everyone could see I was culling my father with this war, but no one could see that Hannah had fired the first shot. My questions at the pharmacy about prescription patterns triggered a HIPAA investigation. The pharmacy tech was my friend's mom, and she nearly lost her job. Her daughter stopped speaking to me, and soon the whole friend group knew I'd gotten someone's parent in trouble. Social media became another battlefield. My former best friend posted about toxic people who destroy families for attention. The subtweet was obvious, and the replies made it clear everyone knew it was about me. My support system crumbled as friends chose sides, most of them choosing to believe the dedicated stepmother over the troubled teen. I kept gathering evidence despite losing everything else. My grades tanked, my social life disappeared, but my determination only grew harder. Every loss was fuel for the fire Hannah had started. Dad's exhausted question hit harder than any accusation. What if I was wrong about all this? The doubt in his voice made me realize I couldn't answer with complete certainty anymore. Some things Hannah had done were real, but how much had I imagined or exaggerated in my pain? At the support group, my admission that I'd been documenting Hannah's behavior obsessively didn't go over well. Some members shifted uncomfortably, and I heard someone whisper about stalking. Even there, I was becoming the villain in my own story. The biggest revelation came through old hospital records. Hannah had been Dad's coworker, bringing meals during Mom's final months. She'd been there for him when I couldn't be, creating an emotional connection I'd never known about. The timeline was damning. She'd been circling before Mom died. Hannah's lawyer filed a defamation suit and requested an emergency restraining order. Being served papers at school was humiliating. My classmates watched as I was called to the office, whispers following me down the hall. The girl who'd accused her stepmother of abuse was now being sued by her. Through a friend who still talked to me, I learned the truth. Hannah had harbored a crush on Dad for years at work. She'd seen an opportunity when Mom got sick and played the long game, but mixed with the calculation was genuine feeling. She really did love him, in her own twisted way. I broke my own moral code to access Hannah's work emails through Dad's laptop. The risk of expulsion if caught was real, but I needed evidence. What I found was a woman who genuinely believed she deserved this family after years of watching from the sidelines. Her emails showed a mix of real love and cold calculation that was somehow worse than pure evil. The old rule-following version of me died as I created fake social media accounts to contact Hannah's friends. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who could lie and manipulate as easily as breathing. Hannah had created a monster, and that monster was me. I triggered Hannah's anxiety by leaving Mom's perfume in strategic places around the house. The scent would send her into panic attacks, and during one, she called her ex while I recorded from outside the window. Her frantic confession about removing obstacles was the evidence I needed, but the victory felt hollow. When I found Dad crying over his wedding album, I realized the truth. Both Hannah and I were destroying him. This war between us was culling the one person we both claimed to love. love, but I was too deep in to stop now. Hannah's counterclaim that I was dangerous and delusional gained traction as my stalking behaviors came to light. The fake social media accounts, the recording devices, the documentation, it all painted a picture of an obsessed teenager unable to accept her father's new marriage. Everything would come down to the judge's decision. Would they believe a teenager with proven deceptive behavior and a history of mental health struggles, or a professional nurse with standing in the community who just wanted to love her new family? The answer wasn't clear anymore. Hannah's young nephew recognized me at the grocery store and innocently asked why I was being mean to his aunt. His mother quickly pulled him away, but not before other shoppers heard him say that Aunt Hannah cried about me all the time. Another public scene, another mark against me. Dad's colleagues were split. Some whispered about troubled teens needing help and patience. Others had seen enough step-family disasters to recognize the patterns. But without clear evidence, most defaulted to supporting the adult over the child. The judge at our preliminary hearing saw exactly what Hannah wanted them to see. A rebellious teenager struggling to accept her father's remarriage, acting out in increasingly concerning ways. The order for family therapy and psychological evaluation felt like a defeat, even though I'd expected it. I reached out to Mom's best friend in desperation. She admitted Hannah had asked suspicious questions about Mom's life insurance during those supportive visits, but she'd thought Hannah was just helping with paperwork. The friend provided context but refused to testify, not wanting to look petty by attacking a grieving nurse who'd helped a dying friend. The most painful revelation was that Mom had known about Hannah's feelings for Dad. She'd chosen to trust Dad's loyalty rather than create deathbed drama. Mom had picked peace in her final days, and here I was, turning her peaceful passing into a war zone. Her friend revealed that Mom's exact words were, "If Paul remarries quickly, protect my daughter." The confirmation that Mom had seen this coming broke something inside me. She'd known Dad's weakness and tried to plan for it, but I'd pushed away everyone who could have helped. Hannah's old social media posts aligned perfectly with Mom's illness timeline. Posts about patience being rewarded, about good things coming to those who wait, about deserving happiness after watching others have what you want. The evidence showed careful positioning, but nothing illegal. Unethical, calculating, but not criminal. I faced a choice. Mom had chosen peace over confrontation in her final days. Did I honor that choice or continue fighting? The answer came when I realized I could fight using Mom's own methods. Documentation, patience, strategic positioning, rather than dramatic confrontation. I would hit Hannah at her own game. Hannah's overconfidence became her weakness. She texted her ex about almost having everything she wanted until this brat interfered. I screenshot it immediately, finally having the evidence I needed. But instead of using it for public humiliation, I decided to show Dad privately first. Presenting the evidence to Dad without an audience let him process the betrayal without the added humiliation. His face as he read through everything, the timeline, the posts, the text messages, aged him 10 years in 10 minutes. When he finally looked up at me, tears in his eyes, all he could say was that he was sorry. The preparation for the custody hearing consumed the next weeks. Hannah fought to maintain her position while I fought for basic safety and truth. Both of us prepared our cases, knowing that everything would be decided in that courtroom. Dad's support shifted slowly but surely to me, not because he stopped loving Hannah, but because he finally saw the pattern, the calculated approach, the slow isolation of his daughter, the careful positioning. His heartbreak was complete, but at least he believed me now. As the hearing date approached, both Hannah and I showed our battle scars. I'd lost weight, lost friends, lost my academic standing. She'd lost her professional reputation, her marriage, her carefully constructed image. Dad had lost everything: his wife, his daughter's innocence, his own ability to trust. The war that Hannah had started with hidden insulin and switched sodas had escalated beyond what either of us could have imagined. We'd both become versions of ourselves that we didn't recognize, shaped by conflict and suspicion. The teenager who'd trusted too easily and the woman who'd schemed too carefully had destroyed each other. But the evidence was clear now. The truth was documented. The pattern was established. All that remained was for a judge to sort through the wreckage we'd created and decide who was the victim and who was the villain. Though perhaps in the end, we were both. The confirmation from Mom's best friend arrived through a tearful phone conversation that I overheard Dad having in his study. She'd finally agreed to share what Mom had told her during those final weeks, and the truth made my hands shake as I pressed my ear against the door. Mom had noticed Hannah's lingering looks at Dad during work events, the way she always volunteered to help with anything involving him. Mom's exact concern wasn't about a specific threat, but about Dad's vulnerability to anyone who showed him kindness after she was gone. I spent the next 3 days combing through Hannah's old social media accounts using the fake profiles I'd created. The pattern emerged like a sickness spreading across my laptop screen. Posts from 2 years ago about deserving happiness after watching others have what you want. Photos from company events where she'd positioned herself near Dad in every shot. Comments on articles about blended families dated months before Mom's diagnosis became terminal. The evidence painted a picture of patient calculation that made my stomach turn. Hannah's own mother arrived unexpectedly on a Thursday afternoon, looking uncomfortable as she sat across from Dad in our living room. I watched from the stairs as she reluctantly admitted that Hannah had called her the day after seeing Mom's obituary, talking about finally getting what she deserved. The older woman's hands twisted in her lap as she explained she'd thought Hannah meant closure from an old crush, not a calculated plan to infiltrate our family. The screenshots I'd been collecting formed a timeline that even Dad couldn't ignore anymore. I spread them across his desk one evening while Hannah attended her mandatory therapy session. His face crumpled as he traced the dates with his finger, seeing how Hannah's interest had intensified as Mom grew sicker. The post about patients being rewarded aligned perfectly with Mom's entry into hospice care. Dad's hands shook as he realized he'd been targeted, groomed, manipulated by someone he'd trusted to help during his darkest hours. hours. I made my choice that night, staring at Mom's photo on my nightstand. She'd chosen peace in her final days rather than creating drama about Hannah's obvious interest. I would honor that choice by fighting smart, not dirty. No more switching pills or planting evidence. Just truth, documentation, and strategic positioning. Mom had been a paralegal before I was born, and she'd taught me that facts properly presented were more powerful than any manipulation. Hannah's overconfidence finally gave her away completely. While reviewing her text messages for the court case, she accidentally sent one meant for her ex to our family group chat instead. The message about almost having everything she wanted until this brat interfered sat there for 30 seconds before she deleted it, but I'd already screenshot it. The timestamp showed she'd been typing it while sitting in the same room as Dad, pretending to be the concerned stepmother. I chose to show Dad privately rather than weaponizing it publicly. We sat in his car outside my school, and I handed him my phone with all the evidence organized chronologically. He scrolled through months of calculated positioning, Hannah's research into blended family law before they'd even started dating, her posts about removing obstacles to happiness. When he reached the accidental text, he had to pull over because his hands were shaking too badly to drive. The custody hearing date arrived with both armies assembled. Hannah had character witnesses from the hospital, colleagues who'd vouch for her professional competence. I had documentation, screenshots, and reluctantly provided testimony from Mom's friend. Dad sat behind me for the first time in months, his presence both comforting and heartbreaking. Hannah kept turning to look at him, her face cycling through hurt, anger, and disbelief that he'd chosen my side. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, filled with community members who'd been forced to choose sides in our war. I recognized parents from school, Dad's co-workers, Hannah's nursing colleagues. Everyone watched as two women who'd destroyed each other prepared to let a judge sort through the wreckage. My hands trembled as I smoothed my skirt, the same nervous gesture Mom used to do before important meetings. Hannah's ex-boyfriend's daughter had agreed to provide a written statement through her lawyer. The court clerk read it aloud, detailing Hannah's pattern of infiltrating families, positioning herself as the perfect stepmother before systematically isolating the children. The daughter described anxiety attacks, mysterious illnesses, and gradual estrangement from her father that sounded heartbreakingly familiar. Hannah's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. When Hannah's own mother took the stand, the courtroom held its breath. She admitted under oath that Hannah had mentioned finally getting what she deserved after seeing Mom's obituary. She tried to soften it, explaining that Hannah had genuine feelings for Dad, but the calculation behind those feelings was impossible to ignore. Hannah's face went white as her mother spoke, realizing that her own family had turned against her. The judge ordered psychiatric evaluations for both Hannah and me, along with mandatory family therapy. The mutual restraining orders would remain in place while the court determined the best path forward. It wasn't the dramatic victory I'd imagined, but it was progress. Hannah would have to undergo evaluation, and her behavior would be scrutinized by professionals who couldn't be charmed or manipulated. The authenticated text messages became the key evidence. Hannah's lawyer tried to argue they were taken out of context, but the pattern was too clear. Her obsessive research into step-family dynamics before she'd even dated Dad, her posts about deserving happiness at any cost, the accidental confession about removing obstacles. The judge's expression grew more concerned with each piece of evidence, especially when combined with the testimony about her past behavior. Hannah's breakdown came during her own testimony. She started controlled and professional, but as the questions grew more pointed, her composure cracked. She admitted she'd watched Dad for years, believing they were meant to be together. She talked about deserving love after years of being alone, about finally having the family she'd never had. The genuine pain mixed with entitled calculation made her testimony even more disturbing than pure manipulation would have been. Dad made his decision that night. I found him in his study, divorce papers spread across his desk. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, aged by betrayal and his own blindness. We didn't need words as I sat beside him, both of us grieving different losses. He'd lost his wife and his ability to trust. I'd lost my innocence and my faith in happy endings, but we still had each other, damaged but not broken. The choice to pursue healing over revenge came slowly. Dad asked me to consider Hannah's genuine mental health struggles, the pain that had driven her to such extremes. I agreed to measured responses, to letting the legal system handle consequences rather than pursuing personal destruction. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a step toward peace. Mom would have been proud of the choice, even if it felt like swallowing glass. Divorce proceedings began with Hannah moving out while I was at school. I came home to find her things gone, my room still bearing the changes she'd made. I stood in the doorway, looking at walls she'd painted and furniture she'd chosen. Instead of changing everything back immediately, I decided to live with it for a while. Some changes weren't worth the energy to undo, and I had bigger battles ahead. The community fractured along predictable lines. Some believed I was a vindictive teenager who'd destroyed a good woman trying to love her new family. Others recognized Hannah's patterns and supported our decision. Thanksgiving required careful planning to avoid family members who'd chosen sides. The holiday that used to bring everyone together now required 2 separate dinners, a permanent scar on our extended family. School became both refuge and trial. Senior year started with whispers following me through hallways, teachers looking at me with either sympathy or suspicion. I threw myself into academics, trying to salvage college applications despite everything. My guidance counselor helped me craft essays that acknowledged my struggles without dwelling on them. The girl who'd planned to write about overcoming diabetes now wrote about resilience in the face of family destruction. Therapy sessions 3 times a week helped process the trauma both inflicted and received. My therapist specialized in family conflict and didn't judge the methods I'd used to protect myself. We worked through the guilt of becoming someone I didn't recognize, the pain of losing friends who'd chosen Hannah's side, the fear that I'd inherited Mom's inability to trust. Progress came slowly, measured in small victories like like sleeping through the night without nightmares. Dad and I established new routines that didn't involve Hannah: Sunday dinners at restaurants instead of home, movie nights where we didn't have to worry about her commentary, visits to Mom's grave together, holding hands in shared grief and gradual healing. We learned to be a family of two again, smaller but stronger for surviving the storm. The restraining orders became final on a rainy Tuesday. Hannah was prohibited from contact for 2 years, required to stay 500 feet away from our home, my school, Dad's workplace. She'd moved to another state to live with her mother, starting over at a small clinic that didn't know her history. Part of me hoped she'd find peace. Most of me just wanted her gone forever. Winter passed in a blur of college applications, therapy appointments, and slow reconstruction. Friends gradually returned as the drama faded. My grades recovered enough to maintain hope for decent schools. Dad started smiling again, tentatively at first, then with genuine warmth. We painted my room together one weekend, choosing colors that neither Mom nor Hannah would have picked. It was ours alone. The acceptance letter from my safety school arrived in March. Not the Ivy League dreams I'd once harbored, but a solid state school with a good pre-med program. Dad cried when I showed him, proud that I'd salvaged something from the wreckage. We celebrated with ice cream, just the two of us, like when I was little and he'd share his cone with me. Spring brought graduation preparations and a sense of ending that felt both sad and liberating. I ordered my cap and gown, submitted final transcripts, attended senior events with cautious optimism. Some classmates still avoided me, but others had moved on to new dramas. I was yesterday's news, which suited me perfectly. The graduation ceremony dawned bright and clear. Dad arrived early to get good seats, camera ready. I stood with my classmates, looking out at families who'd weathered their own storms. In my speech as salutatorian, I talked about resilience without mentioning specifics, about choosing hope over bitterness, healing over revenge, moving forward when standing still felt safer. The applause felt like absolution. 6 months had passed since that night at the gala when everything exploded. Hannah lived in another state with her mother, rebuilding her life far from us. Dad and I had found our rhythm as a family of two, visiting Mom's grave monthly, holding hands through grief and healing. The war was over, leaving scars, but also strength. I headed to college with a scholarship earned despite everything, carrying Mom's memory and Dad's trust into an uncertain but hopeful future. The girl who'd trusted too easily and the woman who'd schemed too carefully had destroyed each other, but from those ashes, we'd built something new. Not perfect, not untouched by trauma, but real and ours and enough.